Merry Christmas and welcome to a special edition of Andrew's Journey in Christian Contemporary Music. Today we're going to look at our favorite CCM Christian albums by decade, and I have a special guest that's going to come and join me to do it. Coming up next on Andrew's Journey in Christian Contemporary Music. Welcome to Andrew's Journey in Christian Contemporary Music, where we dive into the classics, discover what's new, and demonstrate the originals. If you're into all things Christian Contemporary Music, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, if you like today's video, to give it a thumbs up. Climb aboard, let's do the CCM journey together. And as I said off the top, I have a special guest here. This is my daughter Tiffany, and we're going to discuss our favorite CCM Christmas albums by decade. Christmas is an important time of the year for us as a family, and we just love our music, and so we listen to it all through the season, and so we want to share this with you. So this is going to be similar to my second episode, if you've seen that, which was my favorite Christian albums by decade, only this time it's all Christmas. The one rule is that with any of the artists that have had more than one album, we can only pick one album on our list. So sorry, Michael W. Smith, you're not going to be on all four of our decades, even though we had one for every decade. So we're going to start with, I'm going to do the 80s. Tiffany wasn't around in the 80s, and we didn't have that many. And then once I do my 80s picks, I'm going to do my favorite and then a runner-up. And then I'm going to hand it over to Tiffany, and she's going to give her 90s picks. And then I'll do my 90s picks, and we'll go back and forth until we get done right up to the 2010s. So here we go, without further ado. Christmas albums, CCM, the 80s. So as I said, I'm going to start with the 80s. And right off the top, I'm going right to the man himself, the man who does Christmas like nobody else, Michael W. Smith. His first, simply called Christmas, from 1989. This came on the coattails of his Eye to Eye album, which was his first #1 album. And so this became quite a popular album. It's got everything you need on it. Orchestra, it's got choirs, it's got Amy Grant guesting. What else do you need, right? To me, it sounds a bit like a concept album in a way, even though they're individual songs. But just some great stuff. And if I had a favorite on here, it probably would be the instrumental called First Snowfall. Even though it's quite simple, it's just one, whenever we get our first good snowfall here where we live, I just am brought back to that song, because to me, it's a perfect depiction of what a first snowfall is like. You agree?
Yeah, for sure. And I listened to this album, even though I wasn't born in the 80s. I listened to it on Spotify all the time. It's such a great album. Just sounds like Christmas.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. No one does it better than Michael. Like I said, we can only choose one. So I got mine out of the way. For my runner-up in the 80s, I'm going to go to Amy Grant, a Christmas album. And if there was ever a classic CCM Christmas album, this is the one. I think this one sold over 1 million copies, if I'm not mistaken. It was released in 1983, so already Amy was quite popular by this time. It's an album that really makes you feel at home. You know, it's one of those ones you want to warm up to your hot drink and just put on and listen to, you know, with songs like Tennessee Christmas. The 4 songs after the first 2 tracks are kind of like a suite. When they're put all together, you have Praise the King, Emmanuel, which is written by Michael W. Smith, Little Town, and the Christmas Hymn. They just come together so wonderfully. But for me, my favorite song on the album is her song Heirlooms. I think that is probably one of my favorite songs ever that Amy has sung. It's so heartfelt, so passionate. It's a great song, but the whole album is great. And like I said, it's a classic. You can't go wrong. Amy Grant, a Christmas album from 1983. And now on to the 90s, and we're going to start with Tiffany with her 2 picks.
Yay! So I'm really excited. A lot of these, well, actually all of these albums I first heard when I was really, really little. So very nostalgic for me. I made a little rule for myself where the first pick was my favorite overall album in general, and my second pick was my favorite nostalgic album. But really the 90s was hard to pick since they're all very quite nostalgic for me. But for the first album that I picked is The New Young Messiah. I love Handel's Messiah. This is the first version of Handel's Messiah that I ever actually listened to, which is really interesting. It has a lot of these kind of modern for the 90s vibes. So think like saxophone, guitar solos, even like right off the bat, the first intro brings in all of these like 90s.
Yeah, it's very well orchestrated.
And, it's really well orchestrated and all the way through. And then of course there's like the classical opera in it as well, and some of the classical elements in it. So when I think of Handel's Messiah, I think of this album, and yeah, it's just like really well done.
Cool.
Love it. And for my runner-up, I have Phillips, Craig, and Dean, Repeat the Sounding Joy. So this one, definitely, like, when it starts playing, it reminds me of when I was a kid. It's just a really fun album, like, lighthearted, lots of humor. You can tell they're just, like, embracing their inner child. So as a child listening to it, it's just a lot of fun. I think of, like, my dad during Christmas time when I listened to this. And they have this really funny song, their last track, they covered the Chipmunk song, and they sound like ducks. And I always thought when I was a kid that was like the most hilarious thing. So yeah, that's my runner-up.
Okay, so for my picks for the 90s, the first one, I'm going with one that's really a sentimental choice of mine. And it is the 1999 Phil Keaggy with the London Festival Orchestra, Majesty and Wonder. And the reason I picked this one, other than the fact it's Phil Keaggy, is that this is the album that we put on over Christmas dinner every year. Everybody's got their family traditions, and that's one, we got to do it. We kind of have to play this one unless you want to hear words, but this is the only instrumental album that we actually have of all of our collection. So it's perfect. We put it on. We enjoy Christmas dinner together, and it's fantastic. Like I said, it's Phil Keaggy. I mean, right from the first track to the last track, you just appreciate his talents. When I went back and listened to it more closely, because normally I'm stuffing my face with turkey when this is on, I realize again just how great he is at what he does. And even though he does some of the standards really well, 2 of the tracks that he wrote are among my favorites. The first one is Hearth and Home, which includes these different motifs, not the least of which is one on electric guitar that sounds very reminiscent of George Harrison, and everybody knows, if you know Phil Keaggy, how big of a Beatles fan he is, so that's not too surprising. And then the other one is, it's called the Nativity Suite, which is like in 3 parts. And as he goes along, his guitar playing just kind of ramps up until he gets to the final piece, which is called Flight into Egypt, where he's just going at it both with acoustic guitar and electric guitar. It's quite wonderful to listen to. So again, that's my first pick, Phil Keaggy with the London Festival Orchestra, Majesty and Wonder. And for my runner-up, I'm going to echo what Tiffany picked, going with Phillips, Craig and Dean, Repeat the Sounding Joy. Everything that Tiffany said, totally agree with. This was back in the day before they got on the worship bandwagon. They were still doing kind of contemporary, adult contemporary pop inspirational kind of music. They brought this out. I always love the blend of their harmonies together. And they do a few medleys of the classics, which are really neat renditions. My personal favorite is How Great Our Joy and Joy to the World. When this gospel choir comes in and they start singing Repeat the Sounding Joy, you just want to kind of move back and forth and clap. It's just great. So I agree with Tiffany on this one. This is always one that I look forward to listening to every year. And now we're going to move on to the first decade of the 2000s. And Tiffany's going to share her favorite and runner-up.
Yay! So this one was really hard for me because There were so many great Christmas albums, I feel like, in the 2000s. And I had to choose the King of Christmas himself for my first one for the 2000s, Michael W. Smith.
Good choice.
And this is his album, It's a Wonderful Christmas. So I had a really hard time choosing because we could only choose him once.
Yep.
I had a really hard time not choosing his album Christmas Time from the 90s. But I re-listened to this, just trying to do it from like a non-biased perspective, and it's just so good. The orchestration is just so beautifully done, and the songs kind of almost seamlessly kind of go from one song to the other, which is kind of like his first one from the 80s, I feel like.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Some of that influence comes back in here, and it just sounds like Christmas. There's some of that John Williams' Home Alone sound in there too. I feel like he like steals some themes from that sound. And just like kind of the swirling strings, and I just love it. It just sounds exactly like Christmas. If you're looking for the perfect Christmas album, I think this is like really close to that. So highly recommend. And for my runner-up, my nostalgic selection is Barlow Girl, Home for Christmas.
I had a feeling you might pick that one.
I was a huge Barlow Girl fan growing up. Have all of their albums, including obviously this one. And just their vocals, their harmonies are always so well done. This is like before the time of super auto-tune, so you can tell like it's just pure talent in their voices. I really like Carol of the Bells, and the orchestration of that song is really well done on this album. Such a good rendition. And then also Becca, the oldest sister, she doesn't sing lead a lot, but this album has her only song that she has ever sung lead on, which is What Child Is This? And she does such a great job with her low alto voice. It's just very soothing, and great album.
Great choices. Okay, so for my 2000s, I got to start off with my favorite when I want to get my big band jazz and my crooning voice on. I got to go with this one. This might be one of my favorite of all time.
I knew you would pick this.
Denver and the Mile High Orchestra, Timeless Christmas. The standards that they do, of course, are great, all jazzy, great stuff, great instrumentation. There's 11 guys in this group. Just sounds just awesome, just full of horns and great guitar playing, drumming, Jingle Bells, Most Wonderful Time of the Year, Little Drummer Boy. They always put a smile on my face. But where I'm really impressed is with Denver's versatility. And yes, Denver is the guy's name, in case you don't know who this is, where he does two very different songs. One of them he wrote called Born Tonight. It's a beautiful and well-written song. Just some great lyrics when I was reading them over. I thought they were really great. And he goes from that to a blues number called Frosty the Blues Man, which is just plain fun. And so he can really be versatile, going from kind of a more ballad-like to this blues on the edge of breakup kind of voice. And on there as well, on that Frosty song, is a killer guitar solo from their guitarist Keith Cooper. I could go on about this one. It ends with a song called This Must Be the Place, which features Denver and none other than For Him's Marty McGahee. And they just do the song so well together. I can't personally think of a weak track on this album. It's very strong. And again, if you want to get out the jazz, this is the one to get. For my runner-up was really difficult to figure out. I had a few different options. Even the one that Tiffany mentioned, the Barlow Girl one, was kind of up there in my list. But I decided to go with the 2002 only album we ever got from this person, Nicole C. Mullen, Christmas in Black and White. This album, when we first got it, right from the get-go with this bass that starts off, it just caught my attention. It was just something so fresh and original at the time that I'd never heard anything like it before.
Yeah, it's a really unique album.
And and the title track is really just Nicole narrating the story of Mary with her encounter with the angel. But it's set to this groove and it just pulls you in. And then it just goes from there. Two more originals follow that. Lamb of God, which is just gorgeous. It really displays Nicole's voice on it. And then a more catchy, upbeat song, 365, after that. To me, the song that gets my vote for the most fun Christmas song is the song Gifts from You, which is kind of like a whole family affair, that particular track. And of course, I have to mention that on the very last track, none other than Phil Keaggy appears again. He's everywhere. With O Come Emmanuel, just some beautiful acoustic guitar, along with Nicole's wonderful rendition of that classic. And now, lastly, the 2010s. And first, we'll hear Tiffany's picks.
This one was a lot of fun because we don't have as many options for the 2010s, but it was fun to kind of see what one would be my favorite.
Yeah.
So my top one is Matt Maher, The Advent of Christmas. This is such a cool album. It kind of has this like epic movie soundtrack feel from the beginning. Like very
That's a good
epic,
way to put it.
But there's also those traditional like chimes and strings in there too. And you can also hear Matt Maher's East Coast Canadian influence coming on some of the songs with the banjo. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's really unique, very intentionally mastered. I think it's a beautiful album just to listen to in general. So yeah, definitely recommend my number one for the 2010s. And for number two, my nostalgic piece is Pentatonic's That's Christmas to Me. And I know a lot of people know Pentatonics. They're everywhere. My sister and I loved listening to them when we were in high school. So when this came out, definitely like watched all the music videos, downloaded the music on my MP3 or my iPod. I don't know what I had at the time. And would listen to it while I was working, and just like some amazing songs on here. The Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Such a cool rendition of just a cappella.
Lots of talent.
Yeah, so much talent. And then, of course, Mary Did You Know, which is just went viral on YouTube.
It's worth the price of admission right there.
So good. So definitely my number two, Pentatonics.
And now for my 2010s. Just as Tiffany was saying, we don't have as many from the 2010s. I actually had my two picks. But for me, the difficulty was which one I was going to put first. And I, by a nose, put Matt Maher, The Advent of Christmas, the same one that Tiffany picked. And the reason I picked it is this one compared to my runner-up, which I'll talk about in a minute, they're to me equally as good. But with Matt Maher, he's got two tracks more, and it's just as good. So to have two tracks more, to me, sometimes if you got too many tracks, sometimes there's a bit of a lull. But to Tiffany's point, this is just some great music here. And I got to tell you, I shy away from people who are worship leaders first and artists second. Christmas albums, I don't know why. But Matt Maher, I mean, to me, he knocked this out of the park with this album. The production and everything. I think Tiffany alluded to, just like with Nicole C. Mullen, where I was kind of hooked in from the very beginning. Same thing, when we first put this on, right from the get-go, I was like, oh, I have a feeling this is going to be a good one. And it is, and I look forward to listening to it every year. It gets better as it goes along, it feels to me. Everything from the jazzy Dixieland type rendition of Jingle Bells to the beautiful First Noel. Matt adds these bridges and choruses in some of the songs that just feel right to me somehow. To me, the best of them, though, is the bridge that he adds in O Come Emmanuel. And part of it goes, "Take heart, O weary soul, take heart, for help is on the way, and holy is his name." It's such a powerful line, and he sings it so powerfully. I just love it. But the epic track to me, for me personally, is Hope for Everyone. I just love this song. He co-wrote it with Jason Ingram. My only criticism about this album is that some of the songs to me just don't feel long enough. They could go on a little bit longer.
It's just so epic.
Sometimes it's just at the end, it's like, what? Is that it? But great album. Check it out if you can. It's on YouTube. I know that for sure. I don't know if it's on Spotify or not. Do you know?
It is.
It is.
Yes.
There you go. So Matt Maher, The Advent of Christmas. And for my runner-up, I didn't know if I was going to choose this one or their other one, but I went with this one. And again, neck and neck, 2 tracks shorter than the Matt Maher one. And it is Mercy Me's second Christmas album, It's Christmas. There it is there. For me, one of the best opening tracks of all the Christmas albums we have is this track Newborn, which combines a medley of Away in a Manger and Hark the Herald with original material, and it is just, speaking of epic, it's just an epic introduction. And then it goes on to fun stuff like Christmas Time Again, which they had a real fun video too. If you haven't, you can check that out. And then they have this great rendition of Sleigh Ride that I love, where they bounce back and forth in time signatures. They go from 6/8 time to 4/4 and then back to 6/8 again. It's just really neat, really cool how they did that. There's other upbeat songs, Hold on Christmas, The Holly Jolly Christmas. But I like the Cleverly and Beautifully Joy. There's a song on here called Joy, which incorporates the verses of Joy to the World and the chorus of O Come All Ye Faithful with an original bridge that they write. And it's just so wonderfully arranged. It really can just worship to it, really, when you play it. It's just great. So Mercy Me, It's Christmas. And that is all that we have. So, of course, I want to hear from you. What are some of your favorite Christmas albums from CCM artists from any decade? Even if you have some stuff from before the 80s, I would love to hear from you. Send your comments, and yeah, that's it. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Have a great holiday and enjoy with your family, your loved ones, and we'll see you in the new year. Andrew's Journey, Christian Contemporary Music. Bye for now.